Mitch Lafon here, and welcome to my YouTube exclusive interview with Living Colour's Corey Glover. The chat was recorded earlier in 2017, in the spring of 2017, in fact. So without further ado, here is the one, the only, Corey Glover. We are speaking with Living Colour's frontman, Corey Glover. Corey, absolute pleasure to talk to you. It's been too long. I've been doing this rock thing for 20 years, and we have never spoken, and that is
really
wrong. Yes,
that's a shame.
That is very much a shame. So let's get started with something that happened recently. Out in L.A. at the Whiskey A Go Go, you were part of the Metal Has No Color Night. Talk to me a little bit about that event and the message. Well, in fact, is there a message, or was it just about, hey, let's rock?
Well, and ostensibly, basically, it's paying homage to this one band out of L.A. called Sound Barrier.
Right.
That came about in the early '80s. This metal band, with a all black band of African Americans from the LA area, which obviously was not seen very often, and they were even before us and before other bands that were doing the same sort of thing. But it did speak to the fact that it had a universal appeal to a lot of different kinds of people. And I think that's what we're trying to do with Metal Has No Color, that, the music has an appeal that goes far beyond certain things. It doesn't belong to one strata of people, I think, is what we're trying to get at.
Yeah. And of course, Sound Barrier was like that great metal band back in the day. Last year Billboard ran an article with Vernon, and it said that Living Colour has never shied away from the African American experience. Being into the rock thing or the heavy metal thing like Sound Barrier was, and like Living Colour, was there, to use the term, barriers in achieving that next level of success because of the color of your skin?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, so for some people, it could be dismissed because we didn't believe in the trappings of certain things, that we didn't dress that way, we didn't talk about the things that the themes that your typical metal song might have, that people seeing a band like ours, and where we sort of took bits and pieces of everything that we had, not least of which our own experiences as human beings, and made it a part of the music. Some people weren't very, what's the word I'm looking for? They weren't accepting of it.
Or welcoming, yeah.
Welcoming of it. More often than not, people were very, very, very friendly and very, very welcoming. We were good friends, and still good friends with bands like Anthrax, and Dave Mustaine is a really good friend, and those kind of folks. We've been embraced by the community. But there's some off days when somebody was like, "What are you guys doing, and why are you guys doing it?" And that was always a challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine it being so. On the other side, though, when you look at hip hop and that kind of music, it seems to have been very well accepted by the white community, and I hate to be talking in these terms. It makes me uncomfortable, to be
Right.
perfectly frank, because to me, music is music. I don't care what you're from or what nationality you are. I mean, honestly, a good song is a good song in my world. But
Absolutely.
But why do you think in heavy metal it was harder for African American artists to have success or breakthrough, whereas the same sort of white kid, if he's listening to a Dr. Dre song, not a problem?
Yeah, that's the nature of things in some cases. One can say that the exotification, like to make what I do is exotic, what you do is everyday. How that you go against the grain. It's just the nature of going against the grain with certain things, and your idea of what going against the grain is. For some people, going against the grain is being a white kid playing, hip hop, or doing hip hop, or being a rap star, or whatever. For somebody else, it's being in a metal band. For somebody else, it's it's whatever.
Right.
What I think our goal, Living Color's goal, was to say that music is music is music is music, and I think that everybody can agree with that.
Oh,
that
yeah.
that we can put you can take all of your experiences and all the music you ever heard, put it in a great big pot, and serve it up, and it'll taste just as good.
Yeah,
But
I agree. And in fact, let's talk music because I think that's really the most important thing out of all of this. And your first album, Vivid. I remember it vividly, quite frankly. Cult of Personality was
right.
absolutely a glorious song. The bodysuit, not so
hmm
much, but but the album.
For you and me both, Hal. You and me both.
Yeah, I can tell you. So let's talk about that album. The band, comes out in 1988. The band forms in 84. So you
Right.
had 4 years of developing your sound, your look, your everything.
Right.
It hits number 6 on Billboard, double platinum, RIAA certified. What was it about that album that just spoke to the people? And what was it for you after 4 years to finally get it out the door and go, yes, we're in the top 10?
Well, you make it sound so simple. It
That's my
wasn't.
job.
Yeah. We were, the band had been around for a long time. It had been established a while before I got there, before Will got there, before Muzzy even got there. The band had existed, and the band had been trucking around New York City, playing gigs, doing things, and the band evolved too to a certain point. Originally the band was all instrumental. It was just Vernon and two other people. It was a trio playing instrumental music. Then he decided that he was going to get a singer, and he had a girl singer in the band for a hot minute. And then he decided he was going to sing. And then he decided, well, I should get a singer. And then I came along. And then the drummer and the bass player got better gigs, and Will came along. And then and then Muzzy came along. And then it became what it is, what you know as Vivid. But during all those years, it was trial and error. It was trial and error on all accounts, from personnel to music, to find out what works and what doesn't work, and who fits and who doesn't fit. It was like a puzzle, and finally we got it, 3/4 of the way finished, and then we presented it to the world.
So talk to me though about that, because as you ride the success and you start getting into the making Times Up, the band sort of continues experimenting with the sound. Why didn't you sort of lock into one sound? Because I think what happens with Times Up is that you're trying to do too many sounds on once and lose the audience, right?
hmm Yeah, it was something that we had to be very mindful of.
Right.
And we were a band that played live. We weren't a studio band. We didn't
Right.
go. We would go. We would rehearse. We had a rehearsal space in a section of Brooklyn called Bushwick that looked onto to an elevated line, the L train, and into Brooklyn. And we rehearsed in there. We rehearsed there, and then we'd pack up our stuff, go to CBGB's, and see how it worked. And we tested it that way. People dug that. People didn't dig this. People sort of understood what was going on here. Some people didn't understand. So let's go back to Bushwick and work on it. And that's what we did. We go into it wasn't studio time. It was rehearsal time, and to see if how this stuff worked in a live setting. It had to work in a live setting first before it could work anywhere.
Yeah, it really did. And after Time's Up, Muzz Skillings decides to leave the band. What importance did he bring to the band? And it seems as though when he left, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my musings, that
hmm
the band lost a little bit of its focus. Was he sort of the glue that held it together?
He was part of the glue that held it together. I
Okay.
think Muzzy's sensibilities was to really be he was very disciplined with. It's basically like everybody in their own right was disciplined, no more so than anyone else. But Muzzy had a sort of like his work ethic in rehearsals was really, 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 really tight. And whereas part of us wanted to be loose and see what happens if we did this or we did that. So, that's what happened. And when Doug came along, who'd been a veteran of this stuff and had been doing it for a very long time, he could roll with the punches. He could like, oh, we're gonna go right this time. Fine, I know exactly where to go and how to do it. So that, to me, didn't make us less focused as much as it made us we were a lot more loose, and I think we're a little more agile as to twists and turns that we could take at any given point in time. Songwriting, on the other hand, the songwriting changed once Muzzy left as well. Something that Muzzy wasn't like one of the main songwriters. It actually was me and Vernon, but I think everybody started to become included into the songwriting process at that point. When Muzzy left, like we all were songwriters at that point, and so whatever direction anybody was going in, what was going on.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about the now. For the last couple of years, I've been reading about Living Colour's Shade album, and it keeps sort of being pushed back and pushed back. It's in the final mixing stages. It's not in the final mix. Where are we with Shade and a new album?
Right. Well, it's done. It's mixed. It's mastered. We're just getting the final artwork and all that stuff finalized right now. It looks like it's going to come out in the fall. Cross your fingers. Knock on wood. Do something. Pray to your saints. Hopefully, this record will be out in the fall. I can't make any guarantees, though.
Musically, where does it see the band going? Is it back to sort of the heavier roots of Vivid, or is it more of some of the other musings like Time's Up and stuff?
Well, this record, I think, our main focus. We did a show a couple of years ago, which was a tribute to Robert Johnson, and made us think very, very seriously about the blues, because that's where we all come from. That's what all this music, everything that we're doing is based on the blues. And why don't we try to give something that's a very, very blues focused? So, and to that end, we thought about what are some of the modern permutations, English,
permutations
of the blues. Permutations.
There you go.
Thank you.
There you go.
And parts of it are straight up blues, but part of it's, and some of it's hip hop to a certain degree. So we did, and we wanted to keep our eyes on the idea that this is sort of like, this is us deconstructing the blues and making the blues in our own image.
Right.
And so it has the Robert Johnson song on there, and it has some modern interpretations of a blues song. It's also us sort of turning it on its head and seeing how that works out. We do a Notorious B.I.G. song. We do Who Shot You? Because to me, that's what I think what Biggie was doing was ultimately the blues. Was doing the blues in his own right. We have some really interesting sort of takes on the blues progression, and that's what this next record is about.
Oh, that's going to be exciting.
Plus, we're talking about all the shit that that's going on in this world, and I thought that was necessary too.
Yeah, I think it's good to mention that stuff. Speaking of mentioning stuff, when you're asked about the greatest guitarists in rock, Randy Rhoads comes up, and Eddie Van Halen comes up, and names like that. Vernon Reid sometimes is sadly ignored. Other times he gets props, but after a lot of these names are mentioned, which I find sort of abominable. There we go for our English today. What has Vernon meant to you in your career? What has he meant to you personally? And how do you judge him in terms, or maybe not judge, but how do you look at him as a guitar player?
He's family to me. So my interpretation of who Vernon is in terms of the guitar ether is going to be very skewed. He's my brother. He's closer than family in some cases. And I think he's an amazing guitar player. I think that Vernon is, in terms of chops, is amazing, is incredible, incredible. Vernon is, in terms of just like he can elicit a sound from the guitar that I don't know if many guitarists can do that. I've had some guitarists walk up to me and says, "Does he mean to sound that way?" It's like, "Are you listening?" And he did. Um, and I think in terms of just riffs, he's a riff meister. That's his thing. He knows a good riff when he hears it and knows how to hold on to it and make it work. And his fingering and his ability to play as fast as I've heard him play, unmatched, in my opinion. And I just think that he's a wonderful, wonderful guy and a wonderful guitar player. He's a pain in my ass, I will tell you that. But that's, guitar player singer thing.
Right, lead singer disease or whatever they call it.
Right.
Back in September, the band was, or at least Vernon was involved in the National Museum of African American History and Culture opening, and
we all were. Actually.
Well, okay, yeah. Yeah. In fact, I see that now. Talk to me a little bit about that center, and then also, if you can, let's talk a little bit about Vernon's Black Rock Coalition that he founded back in '85.
Mm-hmm.
But go ahead.
No, well, the Museum for the of the African American, it was set up, was in the works years and years ago, and there's a young lady named Timothy Ann came to us and said, "We'd like to get some stuff from you guys. We thought you're a major part of the diaspora." And we got a bunch of stuff together. Will Calhoun, I must say, was spearheaded that. He is the archivist of the band, so, as well as being an amazing drummer. But he was the guy who made who got all this stuff together, and we all got little bits and pieces. And to think that this little band out of New York City, has something in the Smithsonian Museum is kind of interesting. It's amazing to me, and.
Yeah, in fact, I think it's even more rewarding than the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because the Smithsonian captures American culture at large,
mm-hmm.
whereas the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame captures, a couple of buddies of, the boss of the building, right? So I think it's actually very significant that you're in that center or museum, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I think it's I can this is something I can be very proud of. I think that I got a chance to be in, not of course it makes you feel old at the same time that I'm in a museum, but that I feel very proud and I'm very humbled by the experience.
A great experience. And talk to me a little bit about the Black Rock Coalition. Is that more of Vernon's thing, or are you involved in that as well?
We were all, how we all know each other, outside of being, neighbors and friends and fellow musicians, was that we all experienced the same things as musicians. That as musicians of color, like we were saying earlier, our people's own limitations as to what we were and what we could do was always in question. Like, you could be a band of people who of black folks trying to do something different other than what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing R&B and jazz and soul and hip hop. That's your lane. But people stepping outside of their lane, their quote unquote lane, was what the Black Rock Coalition was about. Was like taking the idea that we're much more than just the things that you think that we are. We're much more than the experience that you might have had dealing with us. And at the time, we were dealing with radio that didn't play certain bands. There were certain outlets that didn't understand where to put us. A lot of bands couldn't get signed to record deals because they didn't fit into whatever criteria the record company wanted. So this was an organization that was championing the little guy and trying to bring to light and bring some sort of what's the word? They're trying to bring a spotlight, basically, to these ideas, that there was much more out there than what you normally see. That that you might be surprised as to what you might find.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this, because we're 2017. Does it bother you that we're having this sort of conversation about sort of black and white and color? I mean, have we not moved past that point, or is it a very much an important conversation to still be having because there are still injustices going on? Sort of, what's your take on it?
It is sad. It is sad that that there are some bands out there that are broken through, but those breakthroughs are few and far between. How long was it between a band like Sound Barrier and Living Colour? Between Living Colour and a band like Rage Against the Machine, or Lenny Kravitz, or you can count on one hand. TV on the radio, you can count on one or two hands the number of bands that have broken through, and that to me says something.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But it's funny because as you mentioned Rage Against the Machine and Lenny Kravitz, the first thoughts that pop into my head, like when you said Lenny Kravitz, I went, oh, he covered Deuce by Kiss. Like, I'm not thinking black artist, white artist. It's right. And I think that's the way we should all be. I mean, we should just think about a song and an album and
It'd be great if we could just do that.
Yeah.
But we don't. Unfortunately, we don't live in a world where that exists.
Right.
That and you see it musically, and God bless you for it.
I really do.
But I think that at some point, there are just as many people that come from a different sort of place than your normal, average, everyday, whatever.
Right.
That we don't see.
Right.
We don't see that somebody who doesn't fit gender norms. We don't see people who don't fit into social stratas. Right. And once we get to that point, it would be great, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. Well, and I don't even know if it's because I'm in Montreal, so maybe it's more of a Canadian perspective,
Mm-hmm.
but all that stuff that you mentioned, I just don't see it. I mean, I just try to live my life being the best Mitch that Mitch can be, and just,
right.
Let everybody else do what everybody else does, and just be happy. I mean, that's sort of right. That's what we're all just trying to be happy, right?
That would be great. That
Right.
would be wonderful, but
maybe naive.
It's not naive. The real world kind of sets in every now and then. But
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
We would have a great show, wonderful show. People were very happy with us and all this other stuff. And then we'd get on the bus and we'd go to a truck stop, and the four of us would walk in, and it was like we stepped into a different place.
Right, and you get
they
the
didn't
stares.
know who we were.
Right.
We didn't care who we were. They did not want us there. Right? You could tell that you didn't want us there. Now, they could have been listening to the music. They might have been at the show.
Right. Cult of personalities playing in the store, and they're looking
Right.
at you like you're aliens. Yeah, no. Oh, by the way, hopefully,
exactly.
At some point, by the way, we do need to get you back up to Montreal and up to Canada for some shows.
Absolutely.
Let me just finish on these two things here, because I'm interested in the music. The Pledge, which was your last solo album in 2012.
Right.
Talk to me a little bit about the direct to fan thing, the Pledge Music thing, because I actually did an album on Pledge Music, and it really is an interesting experience. And
it is.
When is sort of the next solo thing? So let's start off with the first part of the question. Well, how was that like dealing directly sort of with the fans and that sort of platform, the Pledge Music
I, I
platform?
must I must be honest with you. It wasn't as successful as I'd like to have been. I'm not used to dealing with the fans directly that way. And although I look forward to doing it again in some way, shape, or form, I didn't do it as well as I thought I should, or I thought I could do it. So it wasn't as successful as I wanted it to be. That being said, I would love to do it again, and this time I know better, and this time I know exactly what I need to do and how I need to do it. But what I want to do next is I have several different projects in my head that I'd like to do. I want to do a soul record, like a real soul music kind of record. I want to do a really heavy hard rock, heavy metal record. I'd like to do an album of ballads and torch songs. So there's a bunch of stuff. Right now, I am working with George Lynch on a record.
Oh, nice. From Dawkins.
Dawkins.
I love George. Me and George have gotten along for years now. Quickly, tell me about that George Lynch thing, because that's great. Like, what is it?
Well, yeah.
Basically,
it's me, Pancho Tomaselli, and the drummer's name is Chris Moore. They're all out in California, and so I've occasionally come out to California and we start writing and recording stuff, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens, see what it looks like. It's not going to sound like anything any of us have done or anything else any of us have heard. You've heard from us, so it'll be interesting.
You're not going to do a cover of Alone again, unfortunately?
No. No.
Now, my show is part of the Jericho Network, and of course, Chris Jericho is a big star in the WWE, and the WWE has been involved indirectly with, or directly, I guess, with Living Color.
Yes.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, CM Punk. Yeah, go ahead.
CM Punk. We did the thing with CM Punk, but we did an interview with Chris last year, actually. It did this long sort of rambling sort of thing on his podcast, and that was fun. That was a lot of fun. And where he discovered that we are not just that we're just as nerdy as anybody else is. And we had a great time with Chris. I love Chris. Big ups to Chris.
Yeah, big ups. But talk to me about that importance of a brand like WWE getting behind the band, using the song, having CM Punk have it as his entrance theme. What does that do for you, for the band? Both financially, visibly, in terms of visibility. Just how was that association for you?
Oh, it was great. And sort of what was going on was, CM Punk was using this before he got to WWE. It was his entrance music before, and some of his other ventures as a wrestler. And earlier on in his life, when he was a kid, when he was still in Little League, that was their entrance music when his team came on the field, and it stuck with him. So it has Cole's personality had a personal sort of connection to him. And when he came to WWE, he was like, I want this as my entrance music. I need this as my entrance music. And made a deal because, the WWE doesn't really go outside. It very, very rarely goes outside of their own in-house kind of people to make music for their entertainers. So they did something unprecedented where using an outside song. So we were very proud, and he stuck to his guns with that, and we were very, very happy with that. And it was great, because a lot of people don't know us from
MTV
buying
or whatever.
Vivid,
right?
Yeah, because a lot of these folks don't have, MTV doesn't exist in the way that we know MTV to exist, and they know us. There are people who know us who are of a certain age who know us because of CM Punk and because of Grand Theft Auto, the video game, and Guitar Hero.
Right.
Those are the ways that we got recognized, and it gave us sort of a second and third life, because here's these songs that you heard that these folks are hearing, and they're going, oh, I like that song. Where can I get that song? And they're going out and downloading it and going to find it on YouTube or the SoundCloud or iTunes.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're on YouTube and you're looking up CM Punk, you got to go see his Grammar Slam videos that he does. It's the funniest stuff ever. Have you ever seen those? They are the funniest things ever. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm got to tell you. Corey, absolute pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we will get you up to Canada. And
Absolutely.
boy, it would just be great because Cult of Personality, and I know that's sort of the one song that people focus on, but it's just that damn bloody good. I mean, not that the other.
I think it's funny thing. It's I think it's a combination. It's getting lightning in a bottle. It's a song that says something and says it well and musically, I think. And we are very fortunate and very lucky to come up with something that long lasting. It's almost 30. This song is almost 30 years old.
Yeah.
It's deep how that a song still has the same kind of resonance that it had 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That when we wrote this song, we were talking about Reagan and Bush and what was going on in what was going on in the world then, and now it seems to still have the same resonance. It's funny. It's great.
Yeah, and it brings me back to my point that I've tried to make the entire thing, is that a good song is a good song is a good song, and it doesn't matter if it's Madonna, Duran Duran, Metallica. Nobody fucking cares. A good song is a good song is a good song.
It's true.
Yeah,
I agree. I completely agree. I wish the world felt that way.
Yeah, so do I. So do I, absolutely. And there you go. So Corey, thank you. Great pleasure. And please let's do this again. I'd love to help get you up here to Canada. I can do whatever I can, whatever you need. This was great fun.
Thanks a lot, Mitch. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good one.
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye now. Big thank you to Corey Glover. My apologies for not getting this up sooner. Do me a favor, please follow me on Twitter at Mitch Lafon. Instagram it is at Mitch_Lafon. And you can also just Google the wonderful words Mitch and Lafon and see what shows up. Sort of like going to a casino and pulling a slot machine. You never know what's going to come up. All right, thank you, folks. Cheers. Bye-bye.